So, hi guys, welcome back to History with Heath, and today I'm just gonna, expand on my previous video on Gordon Rinpoche and Yeshisokyo, and this will be on more of like a deep dive kind of on the later stages of both of their lives and kind of what they did. Because my last video was more of just a quick evaluation of his life. But anyway, before we start, here's a bit to skip. I just want to explain to you in my last video that I think some of you probably might have misunderstood. Okay, so please skip ahead. So, basically, I said that Guru Rinpoche's manifestations, his 8 manifestations, they were at different stages of his life. And what I meant by that is, you might be confused because they are different manifestations that had different lives, as one might say, but they're all Guru Rinpoche. If you wanted to know, the manifestation that Guru Rinpoche was born as was Guru Pema Jungge. That's the main one. And although he manifests as these different ones, when he manifested as Guru Pema Jungge, that's when he was born in Ordinary to a lotus and was adopted by the king and queen and all that stuff that happened. So I just thought I'd get that over with. And also another thing to note is that the manifestations aren't linear. Well, most of them do come after one another, but there are some that happen at the same time and overlap. Like the first two manifestations, Guru Pema Gyalpo and Guru Nyima Oza, they both manifested at the same time. Anyway, so today, of course, we're going to be talking about the late stages, of course. So for people who have skipped ahead, this is the bit to come back to now. Yeah? So, just in the twilight of the 8th century, of course, we have Guru Rinpoche. He's in Tibet. He's subduing these spirits, and he's kind of just become this figure. Yeah, he's like a great person. He's brought Buddhism to Tibet, and he's just doing the stuff that he does, and he's just teaching many people. At this point, he's got, of course, 25 disciples. He's well known. He's met Tritson Dexter many times. He's lived with him. He has, of course, his consort, Yeshisokyo, who's with him. And basically, so, Guru Rinpoche would, of course, just continue to subdue many spirits, and convert them to Buddhism and make them Dharma protectors, and would just ensure that Tibet was safe and a land of sanctity and peace and Dharma, yeah? And then around this time, Guru Rinpoche and Yeshisokyo would start writing Dharma. And if you don't know what Dharma is, it's like hidden teachings that were hidden by Guru Rinpoche and Yeshisokyo to be discovered by later generations. Because he didn't really believe that they were ready yet. And the people who discovered these Dharmas hundreds of years later, they are called Tertons, while people who hide Dharmas are called Dharmas. That's a bit confusing, but there's only one Dharma, which is Guru Rinpoche. Well, two. Guru Rinpoche and Yeshisokyo. They are the only two Dharmas who hid Dharmas. I know that's really confusing, but that's what they did. They are Dharmas who hid Dharmas, which were discovered by Tertons, okay? So, with sources from like the Testament of Ba, that's one of the main historical texts of Tibet that was just chronicles, like a chronicle, yeah. And in the Testament of Ba, it said that Guru Rinpoche saw the challenges that Tibet would eventually face, and the sectarian violence, the decline of Dharma, and just, infighting and things. And he actually entrusted his consort, Yeshisokyo, to actually record his teachings in a Dakini script, which was like just a language of spiritual encryption which protected the purity. And of course, these were the Termas, and the Tertons would discover them and would, use their spiritual knowledge to read them and understand this. Anyway, of course, we know that Yeshisokyo is the female form of Guru Rinpoche. And you might be thinking, what? I thought she was just his consort. Well, of course, one enlightened mind can have many forms, and of course we've seen with Guru Rinpoche, he's had many manifestations. And the thing to note is that these manifestations aren't emanations, because emanations are separate. And I know, of course, technically nothing's separate, we're all luminous ground, but in the relative sense, they're separate. But even manifestations aren't. It's just the different Nirmakaya emanations. Emanations, I mean, like forms, yeah. I shouldn't have said that. That probably confused loads of viewers. Anyway, so he has also had other emanations, like there's later emanations that came around, and so there's not just a manifestation, because there's emanations. And of course, Yeshi Sogyal and the other four consorts, like especially Mandravada, they are also seen as just the female embodiments of his mind, his enlightened mind. And of course, Yeshi Sogyal, she is known for mastering Tsogen, which is a great perfection, and many other Vajrayana practices, and just, of course, she's believed to be Buddha, and she transcended the ordinary limitations. She's a Dakini Buddha, so she, and of course, reached enlightenment. Well, she was already enlightened, but I mean, like, re-enlightenment, like Rinpoche did himself. Anyway, so, like I said before, Yeshi Sogyal transcribed Rinpoche's teachings and preserved them in this script. And she did it as well as Rinpoche, but she would hide these terms in sacred places like mountains. Lots of mountains in Tibet. Anyway, so she would, in the latter years of her life, she would undertake many solitary retreatments in very sacred locations, and she would, of course, just like any tantric master would experience visions and mandalas and future events and things like that. So many of you might ask, okay, so like how did they die? How did they die? Well, we believe that Rinpoche and Yeshi Tsogyal both didn't die. Both Rinpoche and Yeshi Tsogyal at different times, though. At different times, I'm pretty sure. They would depart from this world to Rinpoche's Pure Land, which is Zangdok Paladin, the copper-coloured mountain of glory. And they would do this by the rainbow body, and I think most people who even decide to listen to this probably know what the rainbow body is, but if you don't already know, it's this phenomenon that has lots of scientific backing. Like, well, I say scientific, but there's lots of evidence of it happening. There's videos and things where you reach when you're enlightened and you reach this pure form, and you just dissolve into light, basically, and it just, of course, I think many people would understand that the course is representing the true nature and how everything's empty, you just disappear into the universe, you know what I mean? So, if you don't know, Yeshi Sogu, she lived for 99 years, and she also achieved the rainbow body, and also travelled to the copper-coloured mountain of glory, Zangdok Gallery as well, I'm pretty sure. And sort of like if you don't know, Guru Rinpoche, of course, he founded the Nyingma school of Tibetan Buddhism, which is the oldest school, and it's the only old translation school. And I said this, and I talked about this in my video about the Tibetan schools. And just please watch that video. But I was gonna go over it quickly. But if you don't know, basically, like in Tibetan Buddhism, there are the old translation schools and the new ones. And of course, most of you know the main traditions of Tibetan Buddhism: Gelug, Sakya, Kagyu, and Gelug. And there are others, of course, they're minor, like my own school, journaling, that's minor. And all of these schools are new translations, except for Nyingma, which is the old translation, which was found by Guru Rinpoche. And I think it's kind of almost similar to other religions, in that these new schools were found when they believed that the main school, Nyingma, were corrupted. And it's not all in line, not all of them split from Nyingma. Some sort of just like split from their own kind of, you know what I mean? They just kind of split themselves. But anyway, of course, Nyingma, although many split from it, it's still alive. It's still alive today. Nyingma is still very prominent. And of course, Gordon Rinpoche founded Samye, which is the head monastery, I think most people would agree, of Nyingma. Anyway, so one thing to just know is that some people might be thinking, okay, earlier you talked about Yeshi Sogyal being an emanation of Gordon Rinpoche, and you're saying that Gordon Rinpoche emanated as Yoshisugyo, and that's a bit like putting him on top. And then you might also say, oh yeah, I was just thinking, but Kalachakra, and of course, well, I said because that's the Adi Buddha and Jonang, but many deities have consorts, and they're believed to be above their consort, and their consorts, of course, are female. Now, this is not always the case, of course. If you don't really know, Tibetan Buddhism isn't a sexist religion, and that's not me just glazing. It's literally a known fact. Like, because of course in Vajrayana Buddhism we discard gender. Like, there's no point. And Guru Rinpoche himself had said that there is no difference between male and female. Like, both can reach enlightenment. There's no there's no stopping for that to happen. But the reason why the consorts are believed to be lower is not due to their female nature, because of course they are deities. They don't actually have gender. They don't have a sex. But the male and female represent different things. Female represents wisdom, and male usually represents other things like teachings and practices. And of course, the male, as in the teachings, is believed to be over wisdom. And not necessarily over isn't always supreme, but like in most contexts, it's above. I.e., with Kalachakra, his consort Vishmanta is also an Adi Buddha, but he is still on top. Like, they're not equals. Vishvata is, well, they are technically equals, because of course everything's manifest from the center, but you know what I mean. She's like the wisdom aspect of Kalachakra, but of course there is no gender. This is just representation. And there probably is some deeper historical meaning. I might talk about this in a later video, but from just the get-go, there's not really any meaning why the male is on top, why they decided that the deities above would be male. It's just a thing that happened, kind of, you know. Just something that went over and happened and just came over. Anyway, guys, please like and subscribe if you found this great sort of reading, and please comment down below what video do you want me to make next. Anyway, thank you for listening. Catch me on the next video. I don't know what I'm gonna make, but because you can decide, and I'll see you later. Bye bye. On Vajrayana Buddhism.